Welcome to Swolehammer. As we spent a year in the Heart of Ghur, we've had 8 warbands added to Warcry, but as some people may not know, they also have rules in Age of Sigmar pretty much right as they drop. So I compiled a quick guide of some of my thoughts on the stats and the appeal of why you may or may not take these models in Age of Sigmar. I'll be breaking down some of the basics, pros and cons, and overall rating that I would give these warbands in Age of Sigmar, and hopefully it helps you decide whether you're a Warcry player to try some Sigmar, or if you're a Sigmar player, maybe pick up these cool Warcry models. And unfortunately, we're starting at a low point with the Horns of HASHUT. Now classically, I haven't been a fan of these models, especially because they're not Chaos Dwarves, even though HASHUT's their specific god. I digress. That doesn't lower the rating, but it definitely doesn't help. Aside from that, there's not much to be said. Sure, they have a 4-up save and they're always battle line, but Slaves to Darkness have so many great war scrolls, and already you can take all the other Warcry warbands, the original ones like Corvus Cabal, Unmade, Spire Tyrants, Iron Golems, etc., and they have so much more utility, it's really hard to recommend these guys. 4 out of 10. On the complete flip side, we have the ROTMIRE Creed, who are pretty awesome. They are battle line in Blessed Sun specifically for Maggotkin of Nurgle, but with a 5-up save and 5-up ward, they're pretty resilient. 20 attacks at range and in melee is crazy. Even if the attacks aren't super great, you're fishing for 6s in Maggotkin anyway to get those disease points, which they chain disease points to other nearby enemies when they give it to them. Overall, really solid. It's cool that they can become battle line and just overall have solid value. Especially in an army that's more on the expensive side when it comes to points, it's good to get some more chaffy kind of units to either screen or just pelt people from afar. Now onto Nurgle's rivals in Tzeentch and the Jade Obelisk. These models are honestly kinda nutty. They have a 4-up ethereal, so they're ignoring positive and negative modifiers to their save, which in itself is insane for 140 points, can perform smash to rubble, and they're always battle line. And if you have the icon bearer, they bring models back. On the flip side, their attacks are okay, and also the units are random in nature. They don't fit in the unfortunate combo deck playstyle of Tzeentch as of 3rd edition, but if you needed to tech against maybe a Herdstone or some other terrain feature, then these guys are great. Now into the other half of that box, and we have the Hunters of HUANCHI for the Seraphon. These models are great, a replacement for Chameleon Skinks in the Seraphon Battle Tome. They have a repeatable deep strike ability and are hard to hit. They're not visible to your enemy outside of 12 inches. And if you build the dart pipes, which are 130 points, they deal mortal wounds on 6s. Tricksy and Clever, on the other side, they are extremely fragile. They have a 6-up save or a 5-up save if you do the Bolas build, but the Bolas build is kind of not really that good. They are 40 points cheaper, but you don't want these guys anywhere near combat because they will get killed very quickly. As I said, I like the models, and if you have the points to spare, definitely shove them in. Also, as I mentioned in starting Sigmar Seraphon, this box is a great value because you get 10 Hunters of HUANCHI and the Terra Wings as well. Now onto the ASKURGAN TRUBLADES of Soulblight Gravelords. And I wasn't super high on these models, but when I looked at their war scrolls and kind of looked closer at what they could do, I was actually a little impressed. They have decent saves, but the number of wounds and attacks these guys have are pretty crazy. And then being able to heal after combat also has great value. Their abilities like giving Strike Last and the anti-monster attack is cool, but ultimately the problem is that there's so much competition in the huge Soulblight Gravelords book, and you can't make them battle line. It's hard to find a way to really fit them into your lists. Possibly in Legion of Blood or Castlight Dynasty, where there's a lot of vampire synergies, you could find use for these guys. But they're also just cool models with a bunch of attacks and kind of resilient. So yeah, I would say if you like the models, definitely consider taking these guys. Now on to models that I unfortunately don't like so much, even though I love Khorne, and those are the Claws of KARANAK. They're cheap, get a bunch of attacks, and are always battle line, but you're gonna really use them for that pre-game move that they have. However, that's where I kind of really fall off with these guys. They're weirdly actually fragile. They have 5-up saves, 5 bravery, and also mediocre attack profiles, even if they get the Fleshhound buff. And then at the end of the day, I just don't like mixing demons and mortals together because I feel like there's not as many synergies, but then they make models like this where it's like, this is the one case where it is. I personally don't like that. If you like it, sure. So in the end, there's not a ton to write home about here, but models with pre-game move always kind of see play somehow. Though if you're looking for some fodder to run on an objective, Untamed Beasts, you could just ally in. They have a pre-game move and run in charge and are 10 points cheaper. So that's always an option from Slaves of Darkness into Khorne. Now we're on to the most recent box, the Nightmare Quest box, and the Stormcast half in the Questor SOULSWORN, or as I call them, the SWOLSWORN. Honestly, I'm pretty low on Stormcast most of the time, and these guys surprise me a little bit. They have good saves, of course, and a solid attack profile with range so everyone will get in, and then they have the once per battle deep strike. Unfortunately, they're insanely overcosted, and them being able to count as 3 models on an objective that's outside of their territory is situational, could be good, who knows? Ultimately, these guys run into the same issue as the TRUBLADES and the Horns of HASHUT, where Stormcast just have so many models already, it's hard to find a place for them, and at 250 points, I don't see it happening, but the leader guy was super cool, so there's that at least. And on to the last warband, but certainly not least, are the Royal BEASTFLAYERS from the Flesh Eater Courts. I have to say, it is awesome to finally get new Flesh Eater Courts models, and these models pop off. Even if they're just Crypt Ghouls, seeing what Crypt Ghouls could look like in 2023 is sweet. Other than that, they actually surprise me with their stats. They're only 115 points, but you get 13 wounds, really strong anti-monster tech, like actually good enough that you could take them with their decent attacks, and still, if no one's running a monster, you wouldn't feel bad about it. And on top of all that, even though they are chaffy kind of units with a 5-up save, they're from a death faction, so they just get a 6-up ward, which makes them a little bit more resilient. So they're cheap, they have good amount of bodies, and they can hit kind of hard, and if they're phasing monsters, those monsters are effed. If I had to dig deep for one downside, there's no way to make them battle line. However, Flesh Eater Courts have the opposite issues of Stormcast and Soulblight and Slaves of Darkness, where they don't have many models. So you're actually probably looking for more things to take, and you would not be hurt investing 115 points into these guys. 9 out of 10, my favorite of the Heart of Ghur warbands. So that's it! I'm making this video assuming we're not going to be in Ghur for much longer, but if the upcoming sets are still in Ghur, I'll make a part 2 to this video. But if you like this content or any other content, or want to see something specific from Warcry or AOS, let us know in the comments. As always, this is Rafiq from Swolehammer. Stay swole.